Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
And we're taking a look at the storm here, Nicole. It is continuing to move away from where it made landfall up toward Georgia and then into North Carolina. I'll show you what we'll expect here.
And if the electricity goes out here, Duke Energy is prepared. The plan they have in place to keep the power going.
We're also live at RDU International Airport with a look at how the storm's approach is affecting outgoing and incoming flights.
And take a look right here at this live look at St. Augustine, Florida. Lots of water covering the streets and the grass there. And we just saw a few people trying to walk through. It looks about knee deep. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Renee Chu.
And I'm Jeff Hogan. Thanks for joining us. Tropical Storm Nicole will increase our chance for rain this evening. By tonight and tomorrow, a few tornadoes are also possible.
We have team coverage of the storm's impact and how local agencies are preparing. We begin with meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with a look at what we can expect in the timeline for our area.
Let's talk about where it is now. It's down here, just very close to Tampa. We're seeing some of the heaviest rain there. That is going to continue to move up past Tallahassee into Georgia and eventually up into the mountains of North Carolina. Of course, St. Augustine is over here, not too far from Jacksonville. And we've seen some heavy bands of rain here. A lot of those helping to produce some of that flooding. We had a pretty hefty rain band that sat in that area for several hours this morning, and that has now pushed northward on up into Georgia and South Carolina. The storm is about 30 miles north of Tampa, beginning to exit back here into the Gulf of Mexico. It'll be continuing to take that northerly swing. Right now it's moving west-northwest at 16. It's picked up a little bit of speed since earlier this morning and lost some of its intensity. Winds now down to 50 miles per hour. It's not likely to strengthen anymore, even though it will move back out over water. By 7 p.m., 45 mile per hour winds, then 35 mile per hour winds near Atlanta, Georgia, and then it continues that strength as it moves through the mountains of North Carolina. Now, we do have a front that will interact with this system as it approaches the mountains. That may increase the wind speeds there. It will also help to bring us a better chance of isolated tornadoes. Overnight tonight, we have the potential a level 1 and a level 2 risk, mainly for the tornado potential. And then tomorrow, it's for the entire viewing area, that level 2 risk for severe storms. For the rest of the day today, we're going to see some cloud cover. Late this evening, we may end up with a few light showers. You can see by 9 o'clock, a lot of that rain lifting northward. Most of that will be fairly light. We do get into some of the heavier rain bands by early tomorrow morning. You can see those moving through. This is where we would have a better chance of some isolated tornadoes and some of the heavier rain. We'll see these waves moving through on and off during the day. This is going to be 5 o'clock tomorrow. The last band is likely to come through right after dinner time through midnight, and then after that we're all finished with it. But there will be several occasions with these rain bands coming through that we could see some isolated tornadoes. This is a look at downtown Raleigh. A little bit breezy. You can see the tree here. This is a look from our Jimmy V restaurant camera, and you can see down through downtown cloudy skies. Right now we're seeing some gusty winds in our southern counties, Fayetteville and Clinton, both gusting to 18 miles per hour. And our temperatures are warm. We're going to see low 70s for highs. Then we'll hold it in the 60s tonight as we see those rain bands moving in.
And here in the WRAL Live Center, we're monitoring live pictures and new videos showing the effects of what is now Tropical Storm Nicole. Take a look at what happened when that storm blew into the Florida's Atlantic coast as a Cat 1 hurricane early this morning. This is a very popular fishing pier in Fort Lauderdale called Lauderdale by the Sea. As you can see, parts of the pier could not hold up to the pounding it took from Nicole's heavy wind and rain. This is the longest pier in South Florida. It was built back in 1963. Now, this is a privately owned pier, but the mayor of Fort Lauderdale saying this morning that the town and the city will do whatever it can to help that pier rebuild because it's such an iconic structure in that community.
Ken, thanks for that. Duke Energy is ready to get the power back up and on quickly should we experience outages from Nicole. This morning, the company talked about the plan they have in place to restore power quickly and safely. WRAL's Chelsea Donovan is live near downtown Raleigh. And Chelsea, we understand that Duke had already planned to hold a briefing today. What was that all about?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Duke had already planned to hold this storm resiliency meeting actually to talk about winter storm preps because Look at the date, it's mid-November. They weren't planning on talking about Tropical Storm Nicole, but that meeting became a bit more urgent as this storm is top of mind and will make its way through our state later this evening and tomorrow. Now, Duke Energy says they've been working since Monday in their operations center to prepare for Nicole, getting crews ready, tools ready, and resources in place. Right now, they have 6,000 line and tree workers across our state into the South and South Carolina, ready to move in at a moment's notice to restore power should that occur. Now, I learned today they also have a small contingency of line workers that have actually already made their way to Florida as the storm comes ashore there. Duke Energy says now would be the time to get your emergency storm plan in place before tomorrow.
If you rely on electricity for medical needs, making sure that you have a plan in place for how you'll respond if you were to lose power for a day or two.
Take a look live back where we are. I think Lauren DeSarmo, our photojournalist, has a good shot of that drone up in the sky, and we are watching now as Duke Energy is sort of giving a demonstration to city and county leaders. They have this new drone technology they plan to use in the field if needed. It's a way to assess stormage in a safer way, but actually in hard to reach places, because we know they can't get their line and tree crews in those bucket trucks you're used to seeing with wind gusts that are around 30 miles per hour or more. So this is just a safer way to assess that damage. Now, Duke Energy says they've recently invested more than $800 million in their grid improvements over the past couple years. That's all to ensure that they can get your lights back on safety should you lose power in any storm, especially if that happens tomorrow. Jeff, back to you.
Should make everybody feel a little bit better. That's Chelsea Donovan reporting live in Raleigh for us this noon. Chelsea, thank you.
And you're looking at a live picture of RDU International Airport, where officials there took early precautions ahead of Nicole to keep passengers safe. WRAL's Brett Neese is live inside the airport with a look at some of the ripple effects of air travel. Brett?
Hey, Renee. Yeah, it's a pretty busy day here, especially inside Terminal 2. Security line kind of backing up a little bit right now. But as we take a look, this is the Delta bag check as people are starting to fill up that line as well. But let's come over here to the departures and arrival board. That's really where we're seeing the biggest impact. Here on the arrival board, you'll notice there's at least 4 cancellations on just that set of flights alone. We know that a number of flights have already been canceled and affected today. It looks like 21 flights have been canceled and almost 10 have been delayed. That number could go up, though, as the storm moves closer. I spoke with the RDU Airport Authority president, who says they begin prepping for any major storm as early as possible.
We've got a checklist of things we go through to make sure that things that are typically out during a normal day are secured. So anything that could potentially fly around, we're starting to secure that stuff, make sure we got enough fuel reserves, make sure we're talking to the carriers, make sure that we understand any needs that they've got. But we've got a pretty extensive checklist we go through from a hurricane planning standpoint.
Now, of course, the biggest thing that airport officials continue to stress is make sure you check with your airline on whether or not your flight is delayed or canceled before you leave the house, Renee.
They're used to planning for hurricanes, but a bit unusual here this late in November. Brett Neese live at RDU.
Now, due to the potential for inclement weather, some schools have opted to move their high school football playoff games from tomorrow night to tonight. All but one of the games will be played tonight. Lee County at North Brunswick has been postponed until Saturday at 6:30 p.m. For a complete lineup, you can go to highschoolot.com. Stay with WRAL for additional coverage of Nicole. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll show you the damage from Jensen Beach, Florida, which is in Martin County on the Atlantic side of the state. And in our next half hour, how Red Cross volunteers from our state are preparing to step in when needed. Tropical Storm Nicole was shaking things up in Florida. It reached hurricane status before making landfall on Florida's Atlantic coast early this morning. This is a live look over in Tampa right now. Skyway Bridge is closed. No traffic you see crossing that. Now, Nicole was later downgraded to a tropical storm before it heads now into Georgia and then the Carolinas today and Friday. NBC's Jay Gray has a look at the damage in Jensen Beach, Florida.
Hey there, and look, a big change in conditions from overnight and early morning as this storm pushes through Florida and into Georgia. I want to show you, though, the waves are still big here, building, and just huge rollers moving into the coastline here. Flooding has been an issue over the last 24 hours. The dunes that protect this area battered significantly, and many of them breaking, washed away. And so you've got that flooding that we talk about, pouring over roadways, some of the roadways torn up. And then you've got water into businesses and homes as well. And so that's something they'll be dealing with over the next several days here. It was a massive storm, more than 400 miles wide, so it affected at one time the entire state here. Power outages, another big deal, more than 300,000 without power, and that number is expected to grow as well. Now, the storm really went to a tropical storm not long after crossing the shoreline, about 40 miles to the north of where we are right now, near Vero Beach. But even though it was downgraded to a tropical storm from a Category 1 hurricane, still causing some major issues, and it will for the next few days. This system's going to push into Georgia and the Carolinas and then up the eastern seaboard. So you'll see wind, you'll see rain associated with this for the next at least 48 hours for millions of people having to deal with the effects of Nicole. That's the very latest from here in Jensen Beach. I'm Jay Gray. Back to you now.
And back here at the WRAL Live Center, Jay just detailed really what Tropical Storm did along the Atlantic coast in Florida. I want to give you the conditions right now along the North Carolina coast. This is specifically Wrightsville Beach. You can see the choppy surf there along Wrightsville Beach. And if you look closely, those are surfers in the water. Not sure if that's a safe thing to do. Let's get right to meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner in the WRAL Severe Weather Center tracking the storm and the effects it could have on our community.
Let's start off with another wide view, and you can see the center of circulation has moved just north of Tampa and back over the Gulf of Mexico. It will start that northerly turn toward Georgia here shortly. But the thing I really wanted to point out, this red box that's moving a little bit, that's where we have a tornado watch, and there have been a number of tornado warnings in this area over the last 6 hours. We start this loop at about 6 a.m. and there were 4 or 5 different tornado warnings that popped up during that time. Those were within one of the heavy rain bands that was on the north side of the storm. This is what we're looking at as we get into tonight, late tonight, and then most of the day tomorrow. This leading edge, some of these leading rain bands on the north side of the center are going to have the ability to produce some tornadoes in our area, and that may end up being the very biggest threat that we have to deal with from this system. Here's a look at its path. By the time we get to 7 a.m. on Friday, it has 35-mile-per-hour winds. But the speed of the center of circulation won't really have anything to do with our potential for tornadoes. Again, those leading rain bands, as they're moving across land, there's some friction that is produced there, and we tend to see these tornadoes spin up. They typically don't last long and don't necessarily do a lot of damage, but certainly they can still tear roofs off and knock down trees. So we'll be watching for that closely. One of the things that's going to enhance that is this cold front. This cold front's going to be sweeping across the Mississippi Valley, headed toward the mountains. That's also going to increase the impacts in the mountains compared to what we'll see on this side of the mountains. Futurecast, we take a look at that as we head through the afternoon, looking at some cloud cover, some evening showers. That's going to be 9 o'clock and then midnight. After that, we begin to see these first bands of rain, and it's within these bands of rain that we'll likely see some of these isolated tornadoes popping up. We could see this at any time tonight or tomorrow as the rain bands come in. We'll be able to track these for you. We'll see these rain bands coming. So as long as you're tuned into WRAL, we'll be able to track them and watch them moving across our area. So you'll have a better idea of when those tornadoes may develop where you are as those rain bands get closer to us. The last rain band likely to move out between 8 and 9 o'clock and midnight on Friday night. And then after that, we'll be in the clear. For tonight, we do have that level 1 and 2 risk for severe storms. Isolated tornadoes is going to be our biggest threat, and we'll see that all day tomorrow for the entire viewing area at that level 2 risk. Now, outside of the tornadoes, it'll still be blustery. It's a tropical system. Winds will be gusting around lunchtime up to 30 and then up to 35 in the afternoon. Now, that just in and of itself is not likely to cause a lot of widespread power outages. You can see isolated across the state in terms of power outages. Also, rainfall not looking that impressive, about 1 inch to 2 inches at the most. Now, in the mountains, it's another story. They'll see some heavier rain there. So rain bands won't be a washout. It's not going to rain all day tomorrow. Those rainfall totals at 1 to 2 inches mean flooding is unlikely. But this is going to be the big thing that we'll watch closely. That severe weather threat with isolated tornadoes, again, could be our biggest threat. We'll We'll also have some gusty winds along with it. We have some breezy conditions right now. You can see the cloudy skies over downtown Raleigh, 63 degrees, and it will be football Thursday instead of Friday. A few isolated showers during games this evening with temperatures in the mid-60s. Once this moves on out, we're looking at some cooler temperatures. Coming up in just a bit, we're going to talk about some specifics for the coast and the mountains.
Elizabeth, thanks. Is your Duke energy bill really high or incorrect? Tonight at 6, 5 on Your Side shares how you can make that determination yourself and how much money they've saved for Duke customers this year.
Also tonight at 7, treating babies born with a life-threatening disease. Duke Hospital and a research team have helped young children overcome Pompe disease. Now a global first, providing treatment within the womb. Still ahead this noon, a class action lawsuit takes aim at Apple and Amazon. How lawyers say the company swindled customers out of big money.
And Move Over meal subscriptions. A new service is helping people decide what to make for dinner in minutes. Coming up, how some are putting meals on the table with just the push of a button.